Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever felt that, twinge in your knee and then someone tells you the real issue is actually coming from your hip?
Uh,
Or maybe even your ankle?
yeah, it happens all the time.
Or you find yourself really struggling with a specific movement. You know what you're supposed to do, but your body it won't quite cooperate.
It's like there's a disconnect somewhere.
Exactly. Well, you're definitely not alone. Our bodies are these incredible, really intricate machines, and understanding how they actually move it's key to unlocking better health, better performance, everything, really.
Absolutely.
So today, we're diving deep into human movement science. We're drawing on some really insightful sources like Principles of Human Movement Science and Corrective Exercise.
Good stuff in there.
Yeah. Our mission today is basically to explore why your body moves the way it does, what happens when those movements go a bit wrong, and crucially, how we can intelligently correct them.
And for you listening, think of this deep dive as your shortcut to really getting your body. We want to help you connect the dots between your muscles, your bones, your nervous system,
Right.
moving you beyond just thinking about like isolated muscle groups you work on certain days.
Yeah, forget chest day for a minute.
Exactly. See your body as this brilliant integrated system. You should walk away with a more holistic view, one that could fundamentally change how you think about everyday movement, exercise, maybe even the serious aches and pains.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of the integrated body. What's really foundational here in human movement science is that you just can't isolate parts. It's all about the team. Muscular, skeletal, and nervous systems, the whole human movement system working together.
And what's fascinating, I think, is that movement isn't just one muscle deciding to contract. It's about the constant communication and coordination between all those parts. Muscles, bones, nerves, they're completely interdependent.
Like an orchestra, you said.
Yeah, exactly like that. Well-rehearsed orchestra.
So this immediately shifts us away from that old school leg day, arm day kind of thinking. Because your central nervous system, your CNS, it isn't just firing off single muscles one by one. It's much smarter than that.
Way smarter. The CNS orchestrates what we call synergies. These are groups of muscles that are basically pre-programmed to work together as a unit for specific tasks.
Okay.
And here's a really crucial insight. Muscles aren't just accelerators, for pushing or pulling. They also play huge roles in decelerating motion, slowing things down safely, and maybe most importantly, stabilizing your body against forces like gravity or resistance.
So you could almost think of your muscles like actors in a play. Their role changes all the time. Are they the lead? A supporting character, maybe just holding the scenery steady.
That's a great analogy.
It really depends on the scene, right? The specific movement, how much weight you're lifting, even just your body position.
Exactly. And this dynamic casting is where movement efficiency really comes from, or where it breaks down. We usually talk about 4 main roles a muscle can play in any given movement.
Yep. Okay, what are those?
So first, you've got the agonist. That's your prime mover, the one generating most of the force, like your glute max during hip extension, kicking your leg back.
Got it. Prime mover.
Then there's the antagonist. This muscle directly opposes the agonist. And the critical thing here is it has to relax when the agonist contracts. That's called reciprocal inhibition.
Ah, reciprocal inhibition.
Yeah. So think of your hip flexors relaxing when your glutes fire to extend the hip.
Okay. Opposing force.
Then you have the synergist. This muscle helps the agonist out. It might add a bit of extra force, or maybe it helps cancel out some unwanted movement at the joint. Your hamstrings often help your glutes with hip extension, acting as synergists.
The helper muscle.
Right. And finally, the stabilizer. This muscle's job is basically to hold a joint steady, providing a stable base so the agonist and synergists can do their work effectively. Think about your rotator cuff muscles holding your shoulder steady while you lift your arm.
Okay, wow. So muscles really are team players. Some lead, some oppose, some help out, some just keep things steady. It's complex.
It is. And they don't just contract in one way either. There's what we call the muscle action spectrum.
Right, the different types of contraction.
Exactly. You've got concentric action. That's when the muscle shortens while producing force, like lifting the weight in a bicep curl.
The up phase.
Yep. Then eccentric action, this is where the muscle actually lengthens, but it's still producing force, like slowly lowering that weight or landing from a jump. You're controlling the descent.
The down phase or slowing down.
Precisely. And finally, isometric. Here the muscle produces force, but its length doesn't change. Holding a plank is a classic example.
Holding steady. So up, down, or hold.
Basically, yeah. And understanding this spectrum is so important because almost all real-world movement involves a mix of all three. It just hammers home that muscles rarely act alone. Their function is integrated, it's dynamic.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's move from the physical structures, the muscles and bones, to how your nervous system actually learns and controls all this movement. The research calls this motor behavior, right?
That's the term.
Yeah.
It's essentially how your whole human movement system responds to cues, both internal and external,
Yeah.
using sensory information to produce skilled movement.
So if muscles are the hardware.
Then the brain and nervous system are constantly writing and updating the software. And it's not just one program. Think of it as three interconnected functions.
Okay.
First, there's motor control. This is all about how your brain integrates sensory input, what you see, feel, sense, to execute movement right now, in the moment, like balancing on one foot. Your CNS is juggling signals from your eyes, your inner ear, your muscles, your joints, all at once.
Real-time processing.
Exactly. Then there's modal learning. This is about getting better at things through practice, making relatively permanent improvements in skilled movements. Think about practicing squats until the form just clicks, becomes automatic. You're not consciously thinking through every step anymore.
You've learned the program.
Right. And third is motor development. This looks at the changes in motor behavior across your entire lifespan,
Uh-huh.
from a baby learning to roll over to, an older adult, adapting their balance strategies as they age.
Wow. Control, learning, development. Okay.
And you mentioned sensory information being key.
Absolutely critical. This is the constant flood of data coming in from receptors all over your body. It tells your CNS about body position, where your limbs are, temperature, touch, pressure, everything. You have the raw data, which is sensation, and then your brain integrates that with past experiences to create perception, understanding what that sensation means.
And isn't there a special type of sensory input related to body position?
Yes, that's proprioception. It's basically your brain's awareness of where your body parts are in space without you having to look. It's like your body's internal GPS system.
Internal GPS, I like that.
And it's absolutely essential for what we call neuromuscular efficiency, the ability of your nerves and muscles to work together smoothly, coordinating all those agonists, antagonists, synergists, stabilizers we talked about.
And here's a key insight. Injuries, like a simple ankle sprain, can seriously mess up your proprioception. The little sensors, the mechanoreceptors in that joint, get damaged.
Ah, so that's why people re-sprain ankles so often. Their GPS is faulty.
That's a huge part of it. Your body literally doesn't know exactly where your foot is in space as accurately anymore. This leads to less efficient movement, sometimes faulty patterns, and definitely a higher risk of doing it again.
Which explains why rehab always includes those balance exercises, right? Wobble boards and single leg stuff.
Exactly. You're retraining that proprioceptive ability. This all ties into sensoromotor integration. That's your brain's amazing skill at gathering all this sensory data, interpreting it, and then executing the right movement. But the quality of that integration is only as good as the input.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Pretty much. If your ankle mechanoreceptors are sending noisy or inaccurate signals because they're damaged, the brain's output, your balance and coordination, suffers.
And this often leads to, what did the source call it? Movement compensation?
Yes. If the main pathway or the main muscle isn't working right, or the sensory info is bad, your body finds a workaround. It compensates. That ankle injury might cause subtle changes in how your knee moves, how your hip moves.
Setting you up for future problems higher up the chain?
Precisely. Maybe a hamstring issue down the road or knee pain. It's all connected. Remember those muscle synergies the CNS uses? Compensation is basically using the wrong synergy or an inefficient one. Corrective exercise tries to identify that and restore the proper synergy, the optimal movement pattern.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics a bit more. How muscles actually generate force and why their length is so critical. The length-tension relationship, what's that about?
Right. This is a fundamental concept. It basically says that a muscle can generate its maximum force when it's at its ideal resting length.
Yeah.
Not too stretched out, not too bunched up.
Goldilocks length.
Kind of, yeah. Think about the tiny structures inside the muscle. The sarcomeres with their actin and myosin filaments. They need the optimal amount of overlap to form the maximum number of cross bridges, the little connections that actually pull and create force.
You used a Velcro analogy earlier, like two strips perfectly aligned stick best.
Exactly that. If they're barely touching muscle too long or all bunched up muscle too short, you get fewer connections, less force. That's why your posture and joint alignment matter so much. If a muscle is held chronically long or short, its resting length isn't optimal, so its force potential drops.
Okay, makes sense. And then there's neural drive, and sounds like how much juice the brain sends.
Pretty much. It's the rate and volume of activation signals the CNS sends to a muscle. And this is where we get into muscles being described as overactive shortened or underactive lengthened.
Right, so an overactive muscle isn't necessarily physically shorter.
Not always, literally shorter tissue, no.
Yeah.
But it has chronically high neural drive. It's sort of switched on too much, even at rest. It's in a partially contracted state.
And that's bad because...
Well, it reduces its ability to contract more when needed,
Yeah.
but also it often pulls the joint it crosses out of alignment. Think about people who sit all day. Often they develop overactive hip flexors. Those muscles stay sort of tight.
Pulling the pelvis forward.
Exactly, which can then affect the lower back, and it also tends to inhibit the muscles on the opposite side to the glutes.
Ah, leading to the underactive lengthened muscle. So that muscle has reduced neural drive. It's too relaxed.
Correct, often due to that reciprocal inhibition we talked about. If the hip flexors, agonists for hip flexion, are overactive, their antagonist, the glutes, agonist for hip extension, gets neurologically dampened or inhibited. It becomes harder to activate them properly.
So tight hip flexors can lead to weak glutes.
A very common pattern. And just quickly, newer research adds another layer with a filament called titin. It acts like a spring within the muscle, adding elasticity, helping muscles recoil, and playing a role in eccentric contractions. So muscles aren't just ropes pulling, they have this spring-like quality too.
Interesting. But the big takeaway on imbalance is one muscle group gets tight and overactive, its opposing group gets weak and underactive, and this pulls the joint out of whack.
That's the essence of muscle imbalance, and it's a major driver of dysfunctional movement patterns and increased injury risk. It's often the hidden cause behind those nagging aches and pains. Corrective exercise is really about identifying and fixing these imbalances.
Okay, let's zoom out again. How does this imbalance concept apply to the whole body? The sources talk about the kinetic chain.
Yeah, the kinetic chain is just a way of saying your nervous system, muscles, and skeleton are all linked together, like links in a chain.
So what happens at one link affects the others?
Inevitably, movement, or importantly dysfunction, at one joint will ripple up or down the chain. That unstable ankle we mentioned. It forces compensation at the knee, which might then force compensation at the hip, maybe even the lower back or shoulder.
One weak link compromises the whole chain. Got it. And related to that was force couple relationships.
Right. This describes how different muscles work together synergistically around a joint to produce movement smoothly while keeping the joint centered and stable. Each muscle pulls with a slightly different line of force, but when balanced, they create efficient rotation and control.
Like?
Think about controlling your shoulder blade. You have muscles pulling it up, down, forward, back, rotating it. They all need to work as a balanced team, a couple, for your arm to move well. If one muscle in that force couple is too tight, overactive, and its partner is too weak, underactive, the balance breaks down, the joint doesn't move optimally.
Like the tent analogy, again, one rope too tight, one too loose, the whole thing tilts.
Exactly. But maybe one of the most powerful ideas for practical application is the regional interdependence RI model.
Okay, what's that?
This model really challenges the old way of thinking, which was often just treating the spot where it hurts. RI states that dysfunction or impairment in one region of the body can directly cause or worsen pain and problems in a seemingly unrelated area.
So my knee pain might actually be caused by my hip.
Very possibly. That's a classic example. We often find that treating hip mobility or hip strength issues can significantly reduce or even completely eliminate low back pain or knee pain, because the hip was the underlying driver, the root cause, and the knee or back was just compensating, taking the strain.
Wow. So for you listening, if you've got some persistent pain, say in your knee or shoulder, the real culprit might be somewhere else entirely. Maybe your ankle, maybe your hip, maybe your thoracic spine.
Exactly. The RI model pushes us, in fitness and rehab, to look beyond the symptoms and find that root cause. It leads to much better, often faster, and definitely longer-lasting results.
Okay, so what does efficient movement actually look like then, if everything's working well? It seems to hinge on good neuromuscular control, bringing us to the difference between local and global muscular systems.
Right. It's crucial to understand that muscles have different roles beyond just creating big movements. They form these interdependent systems for stability and force distribution. First, you have the local muscular system.
The deep stabilizers.
Precisely. These are muscles that attach directly to the vertebrae deep inside. They're primarily made of slow-twitch, endurance-type fibers. Their main job is in big movement, but providing segmental stability, controlling posture, basically protecting your spine and joints from the inside out. Think transversus abdominis, multifidus, the pelvic floor, your deep, deep core.
The foundation and then the global muscular system.
These are the bigger, more superficial muscles, the ones closer to the surface. They tend to be more fast twitch, designed for strength, power, speed. They're the ones that actually create the larger movements we see, and they transfer forces between the upper and lower body. Think rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscles, lats, glutes.
The big movers.
The big movers, exactly. The key insight here is that the local and global systems must work together harmoniously. The local system needs to stabilize first, providing a solid foundation. Then the global system can generate powerful, efficient movement on top of that stable base.
And if the local system is weak or inhibited?
Then the big global muscles often have to try and do both jobs, stabilize and move. And they're not really designed for that deep stabilization role. This often leads to compensations, poor posture, inefficient movement, excessive stress on joints, and ultimately a higher risk of injury.
Okay. And the brain organizes these global muscles into specific patterns, too. The sources mentioned global subsystems or slings.
Yes, this is fascinating. Your CNS coordinates these global muscles into functional groups, often called myofascial slings, that run across the body. They explain how forces are really transferred. It's not just isolated muscle actions.
Would you give an example?
Sure. The posterior oblique subsystem, POS, is a great one. It connects your gluteus maximus on one side through the thoracolumbar fascia in your lower back to the latissimus dorsi on the opposite side.
So like a diagonal line across your back.
Exactly. This sling is incredibly important for generating rotational power and stabilizing the pelvis and spine during activities like walking, running, throwing, swinging a bat, or golf club. When you see powerful fluid rotation, you're seeing that POS working well.
There are others too, right? Like front ones and side ones?
Yep, there's the anterior oblique subsystem, AOS, on the front, connecting obliques and opposite adductors, important for trunk rotation and stability, and the lateral subsystem, LS, involving muscles on the side of the hip, crucial for single-leg balance and preventing your hip from dropping when you walk or run. And the deep longitudinal subsystem, DLS, which helps absorb shock of the back of the body.
So if someone asks why a strong core helps their golf swing, or why weak hips might make their knee hurt when they run, these subsystems are the answer.
That's a huge part of the answer, yes. They demonstrate beautifully how your body functions as this interconnected unit, transferring force seamlessly across multiple joints and muscles, not just isolated parts doing their own thing.
Okay, this is painting a really integrated picture. But what happens when things start to go wrong, when these systems break down? The sources talk about movement impairment leading to a cumulative injury cycle. Sounds ominous.
It kind of is, because it's a vicious loop. Movement impairment just means the structural integrity of the system is compromised. Joints aren't aligned properly, muscles aren't working optimally. This dysfunction, whether it starts from an old injury, bad habits, poor posture, whatever, it kicks off this cycle.
How does the cycle work?
Well, the initial dysfunction leads to altered muscle lengths and tensions, those overactive shortened and underactive lengthened muscles we discussed. This messes up the force-couple relationships around joints,
Right.
which leads to improper joint movement, faulty mechanics. This in turn impairs neuromuscular efficiency, the communication breaks down. All of this leads to increased stress on tissues, microtrauma, fatigue.
Inflammation.
Inflammation, yes. Then the body tries to heal, often laying down adhesions or scar tissue, which can further restrict movement and alter mechanics. This reinforces the muscle imbalances, which causes more dysfunction.
And the cycle just feeds itself. Wow.
Exactly. Unless you actively intervene to break the cycle, the dysfunction tends to snowball, often leading to chronic pain, recurring injuries, and decreased performance.
And a key part of this is when the wrong muscles try to do the job. Altered muscle recruitment.
Yes, that's a major consequence. Two main ways this happens. First, altered reciprocal inhibition. We touched on this. A tight, overactive muscle neurologically inhibits its functional antagonist. That tight hip flexor literally makes it harder for the brain to activate the glute max effectively.
The antagonist gets shut down.
Pretty much. The second way is synergistic dominance. This is when a synergist muscle, one of those helper muscles, compensates for a prime mover that's weak or inhibited.
So the helper takes over the main job.
Right. For example, if your glute max isn't firing well during hip extension, your hamstrings or even your lower back muscles, erector spinae, might become dominant in that movement. They're doing a job they weren't primarily designed for.
Which leads to
Overuse, strain, inefficiency, potential injury in those compensating muscles, and the original problem, the weak glute, never gets fixed. It just reinforces the bad pattern. You see these compensations show up as dynamic malalignments, things like knees caving in during a squat, knee valgus, or excessive foot pronation.
Or even when standing still, static malalignments.
Yeah, like chronically rounded shoulders, or that forward head posture many people have from looking at screens. These static postures often reflect underlying muscle imbalances.
And one more concept here, relative flexibility. The body takes the path of least resistance.
Always. The human body is brilliant at finding a way to achieve a desired movement, even if it has to cheat. If you lack, say, good ankle dorsiflexion, bending your ankle up, but you try to do a deep squat anyway, your body won't just stop. It'll compensate somewhere else, maybe by turning your feet out excessively, maybe by allowing your knees to cave in, or often by increasing forward lean from the hips and low back, because that path offers less resistance than forcing the ankle.
So it finds the easy way out, even if it's mechanically faulty.
Precisely. Which, again, reinforces poor patterns and increases stress elsewhere.
Okay, so given all this potential for dysfunction, how does corrective exercise actually fix it? How do we break that cycle?
Well, the core idea is to systematically restore optimal movement by addressing those identified imbalances. It starts with assessment looking at posture, both standing still, static, and during movement dynamic. The sources often use the 5 kinetic chain checkpoints as a guide.
What are those checkpoints?
They are 1, foot and ankle complex, 2, knees, 3, the lumbopelvic hip complex, or LPHC, basically your hips, pelvis, and lower back, 4, shoulders and thoracic spine, upper mid-back, and 5, head and cervical spine, your neck.
So you look at alignment at each of those key areas.
Yes, both statically and during basic movements like an overhead squat. You're looking for those deviations, feet turning out, knees caving in, excessive low back arch, shoulders rounding, head jutting forward. These checkpoints help pinpoint where the kinetic chain is breaking down.
And once you identify the issues,
the goal is to restore balance, restore proper length-tension relationships in the muscles, fix the faulty force-couple relationships, improve neuromuscular control. And it typically follows a clear, systematic process.
a continuum.
Exactly. The corrective exercise continuum, generally it involves 4 phases. First, inhibit. Use techniques like foam rolling or massage to reduce activity in those overactive, tight muscles.
Calm them down.
Right. Second, lengthen. Use stretching techniques like static stretching to increase extensibility in those shortened tissues.
Improve flexibility there.
Third, activate. Now you target the underactive, inhibited muscles with specific strengthening exercises to wake them up, improve their neural drive.
Get the weak ones firing.
Yep. And finally, fourth, integrate. This is where you put it all together, using exercises that involve the entire kinetic chain, retraining the body to use all the muscles inhibited, lengthened, activated together in efficient, coordinated movement patterns.
Inhibit, lengthen, activate, integrate. A systematic approach.
It's about systematically unwinding the dysfunction and rebuilding proper function, bringing the body back into balance.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big picture for everyone listening? We've covered a lot today, diving deep into how truly integrated human movement is.
Yeah, we've gone from how muscles and nerves dance together to how tiny imbalances can create ripple effects across your whole kinetic chain.
We explored how your brain controls, learns, and develops movement, the vital role of sensory feedback like proprioception,
And how muscle mechanics, neural drive, even tiny things like tightened filaments all contribute to moving efficiently. And maybe the most crucial point, understanding and correcting those muscle imbalances is really the key to breaking that cumulative injury cycle.
So as you go about your day, maybe start thinking about your own body as this incredible, constantly adapting system. What subtle messages is it sending you right now? A bit of tightness in a shoulder, a little twinge in the knee, feeling slightly off balance. How might understanding these principles like kinetic chains, force couples, local versus global muscles change how you approach your workouts or even just how you sit at your desk or stand in line?
Yeah, start to just observe yourself. No judgment, just observation. When you squat down to pick something up, do your knees automatically cave inwards? When you reach up high, does your lower back arch a lot?
Pay attention to the feedback.
Exactly. Your body is constantly giving you feedback. And equipped with some of this knowledge, hopefully you can start to listen a bit more effectively, maybe make some smarter choices for your long-term movement health.
Absolutely. We really hope this deep dive has sparked some new insights, maybe a few aha moments about the amazing machine that is your body. Keep exploring, keep moving intelligently, and keep learning.